This little video is going to look at the Treaty of Versailles and look at the main aims of the Allies. So the Treaty of Versailles was signed on June the 28th, 1919, officially ending the First World War between Germany and the Allied powers. The treaty had taken months of negotiation. The main aims of Britain, France, the United States and the Treaty of Versailles reflected each nation's priorities and differing perspectives of how to handle Germany after the war. So, who are the big three? Well, the big three Allied powers are regarded as being Prime Minister David Lloyd George of the United Kingdom, Prime Minister Georges Clemenceau of France, and President Woodrow Wilson of the United States. Despite each of these being allies, they each had very different aims for the treaty. Let's start with France. So France was led by Georges Clemenceau, and its main aims were security and revenge. Let's look at what Clemenceau was looking at in terms of the context of the First World War. Well, France had suffered enormously in that war. It had huge physical damage. Large areas of northeastern France were occupied and destroyed in the war. France also suffered catastrophic casualties. 1.4 million people lay dead. 71% of those who served in the French armed forces were wounded, and 1 in 4 Frenchmen aged between 18 and 30 were killed in the war. So what did he want? Well, he wanted, first of all, security. France had been invaded twice by Germany since 1870. So France wanted strong measures to prevent future German aggression. Clemenceau aimed to weaken Germany so it could never again pose a threat to France. It also wanted territory. France wanted to regain Alsace-on-Lorraine, lost in 1871 to the Germans, and they sought a control over the Rhineland as well as a buffer zone and an element of security. They also wanted reparations. France pushed for tough reparations to compensate for the immense destruction it had suffered, hoping to use Germany's payments to rebuild and strengthen its shattered economy. And finally, it wants disarmament. France wanted to significantly reduce Germany's military and ensure it never went to war again and remained permanently weak. Britain was slightly different. It wanted balance, it wanted empire, and it wanted protection. So it's led by David Lloyd George. And in terms of the context of the British, well, the British Empire suffered 1 million people killed and 2 million permanently wounded. Economically, it went from the world's largest creditor nation to its largest debtor nation, and it spent a quarter of its GDP paying for the war. Its merchant navy was also severely impacted by submarine warfare. What did it want then? Well, Lloyd George was looking for a balance of power in Europe. Britain always wanted a balance of power, and it didn't want any single power dominating on the continent. They didn't want Germany to be crippled completely because it feared that that would just lead to instability, a dominant France, or open the door for Bolshevism, communist influence in Germany. It also wants economic stability. The United Kingdom relied on European trade, including with the Germans. Germany was the United Kingdom's biggest export market before the war. So Lloyd George wanted Germany's economy to recover and to facilitate future trade and prevent a collapse that could destabilise Europe. It also wanted greater territory overseas. So the United Kingdom aimed to expand its empire yet again by gaining German colonies and enhancing its global influence, which had taken a knock from the war. And there's public pressure as well. Public opinion wanted Germany punished, and Lloyd George had to balance his moderation with the demand for some level of German punishment. And then finally, you have the Americans. So the United States was led by President Woodrow Wilson, and he based his ideas around idealism and lasting peace. So what's the context? The United States didn't declare war until April 1917, so its casualties were relatively light, at only about 108, just less than 120,000 dead. The war had also not directly affected US territory, and it actually helped the United States grow economically, so it doesn't have the same bitterness as the other two Allied powers have. So Wilson sets out his idealistic opinions of what he wants following the First World War. So he wanted his 14 points. This is what he believes is a fair, lasting peace based on around the 14 points, promoting self-determination, allowing nations to choose their own political paths. He was less interested in punishing Germany and more focused on creating stable governments throughout Europe. He wanted to have much more open diplomacy, so the League of Nations was set up, and that was to prevent future wars, and provide a platform for diplomacy. And he wants moderate reparations and borders. Wilson favoured a moderate approach to reparations. He felt harsh penalties would only lead to resentment and future conflict. He opposed France's demand to completely strip Germany of territory, aiming instead for a fair adjustment to its borders. Thank you very much for listening. Hopefully this helps you to understand the aims of the Allies whenever they're drawing up the Treaty of Versailles. Thank you.